Happy Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, after work story. This is one of the ways where I relax, exhale, and replenish myself. Yeah, I hope you have something that you do. Oh, I'm looking at a plant that needs to be replenished. Oh, need some water. Anyway, the Chinese emperor's new clothes. Okay, this should be interesting. Chinese emperor's new clothes by Ying Chang Compestein and illustrated by David Roberts. Also written by Ying Chang Compestein. Secrets of the Terracotta Soldier, historical photos, and Indiana Jones style adventure enriched this tale of an unusual meeting between the Yin Dynasty and the 20th century. Okay, let's dive in. Ming Da is only 9 years old when he becomes the Emperor of China. His ministers take advantage of China. They take advantage of the little boy emperor by stealing rice, gold, and precious stones. Oh, some robbery, some manipulation going on here. But Ming Da has a plan. He orders his tailors to make him magical new clothes that only honest people can see. Can Ming Da outsmart his ministers and save his country? Get a plan and you can outsmart. And this is a clever retelling of Hans Christian Andersen's classic fairy tale. So let's dive in. The Chinese emperor's new clothes. Oh my. By now, you have probably heard the old folk tale about the emperor's new clothes. Two sly tailors fool a vain emperor into believing he is wearing magical clothes, when in fact he is parading through town buck naked. Yeah, not a good feeling. The truth is that the story took place here in China, and without any tricky tailors. Here is the real story. When Ming Da was 9, he became the emperor of China. What was that, 3rd grade? His ministers thought the boy emperor was too young to rule and took advantage of him. They stole silks to make themselves fine clothes. They stole rice from the emperor's warehouses and sold it to dishonest merchants. And they robbed the royal treasury of gold and precious stones. They left the boy emperor with no cloth to dress the poor, no food to feed the hungry, and no money to run his kingdom. Ming Da knew that if he fired the corrupt ministers, they would rebel against him. Oh, he was smart. Day and night, the boy emperor searched for a way. He had to be wise. So day and night, he searched for a way to save his kingdom. But he couldn't think of anything until, you see how they were trying to be tricky and manipulative? And look at the mouse. A month before Chinese New Year, traditionally people dress in new clothes, a New Year's Day, so evil spirits won't recognize them. When Ming Da's loyal tailors came with the design for his new clothes, the boy emperor was gazing out the window at the children begging on the streets. There were still people suffering. You will look magnificent in this parade, the old tailor said, holding the cloth higher. Ming Da glanced at the dragon stitched above fluffy clouds. He wished he could dress the street children just as finely. Do you like it? Asked the young tailor. Very nice, said Ming Da, staring at the crow, monkey, and rat fleeing from the dragon. Suddenly he had an idea. My ministers are stealing from me. Will you help me outwit them? Of course, said his tailors. So Ming Da told them his plan. How do you outwit? The next day, Ming Da summoned his ministers. I want to show you the magical new clothes these fine tailors made for me, he said. Magical? Asked the agriculture minister skeptically. Yes, honest people will see their true splendor, while the dishonest will see only burlap sacks, said the young tailor. Please show us, said the plump war minister. Certainly, Ming Da hopped off his throne and stepped behind a screen. The tailors helped him put on an old rice sack painted with ink and vegetable juices. Now remember, he said, honest people will see their true splendor, and dishonest people will see only burlap sacks. Look at this. When Ming Da stepped out, the minister stared at the boy emperor, mouths agape. Most excellent, don't you think? Ming Da spread his arms wide. Feel the sleeves? He shook his arms. The trade minister broke into a cold sweat. He stroked the rough sack. It's softer than the finest silk. The dragon's eyes are so alive, stuttered the war minister. We use the finest black pearls from the South China Sea, said the young tailor. This young tailor. The ministers exclaimed their approval, each louder than the last. Unbelievable, astonishing, magnificent. Deceptive. These tailors are at your service. Who wants magical new clothes? Asked the young emperor. The ministers quickly raised their hands. Excellent. Tailors, get to work, ordered Ming Da. So, the tailors set up cutting tables, coffers, and trunks behind a large screen. They worked day and night. The news about the magical clothes spread like fire in a dry field. The citizens looked forward to seeing the lavish New Year's Day parade, except the dishonest merchants. Soon came the fitting for the ministers. Ming Da skipped his daily visit to the orphanage and hid behind a screen to watch. When the trade minister entered, the young tailor held up a rice sack. See how the rubies and pearls and the crow's eyes and beak sparkle in the light? Face pale, the minister glared at the tailor. Why is there only one crow? He demanded. We ran out of jewels, said the young tailor. I will supply all the jewels you need. Just make mine more splendid than the others. He stormed out without trying on his new clothes. When the war minister entered, the young tailor held up a rice sack. Don't you love the extravagant details of the clever monkey? The minister squinted his eyes at the drawing of a sly monkey stealing gold. It is unbelievable. Let me try it on. The tailors helped him into his robe and tightly wrapped a straw rope around his chubby waist. How does it fit? Asked the young tailor. Can you make it bigger? The minister gasped for air and waved his arms about. Yes, but we ran out of silk, said the young tailor. I will pay with the purest gold. Just make mine more splendid than the others, he ordered. When the agriculture minister entered, the old tailor was busily trimming the bottom of a rice sack with scissors. The minister looked at it from all angles. Beads of sweat rolled down his face. See how the rat's shiny eyes look alive? Yes, it's astonishing. The minister stared at the drawing of a long-whiskered rat stealing rice. The tailors helped the minister into his robe. How does it fit? Asked the young tailor. The minister looked down at his bare legs. Can you make it longer? He rubbed his knobby knees. We ran out of silk, said the young tailor. I will pay you with the best rice that you can trade. Just make mine more splendid than the others, he ordered. In the days that followed, the ministers delivered baskets of precious gems, gold, and rice to the tailors. With the jewels and gold, Ming Da brought cloth to dress the poor. With the rice, the emperor fed them. Soon came the morning of the New Year's Day parade. When Ming Da entered the hall in his new clothes, the ministers were loudly praising one another. "Unbelievable!" exclaimed the trade minister. "Astonishing!" cried the war minister. "Magnificent!" shouted the agricultural minister. "You all look splendid. Let the parade begin," declared the boy emperor. Lion dancers led the way. Firecrackers popped and exploded. Martial artists punched and kicked, and acrobats jumped and tumbled. At last, the ministers came marching behind Ming Da, proudly showing off their new robes. The street fell silent, and a whisper spread throughout the crowd. "Spectacular," said one of the dishonest merchants. "Beautiful fabric," said another. "Lovely design," said a third. So look at this. Yes, here they are. There they are. And look at the looks on the people's faces. Like, what's going on here? "Can you not see? They're wearing rice sacks," shrieked a boy. The crowd roared with laughter. Ming Da smiled, and the children sang and pointed. "Itchy sacks, itchy sacks." "You are wearing rice sacks," exclaimed the war minister to the other two. "So are you," cried the trade minister. "We have been tricked," shouted the agriculture minister. The ministers fled China. Ming Da replaced them with honest counselors and ruled for many years. His people were happy, well-fed, and very well dressed. Honest. Oh, that's beautiful. Now that's the real story. The emperor marched through the town to save his country. I don't know how people ended up with that old folktale about two sly tailors fooling a vain emperor, but the moral of the story is pretty much the same. Hey, that's pretty good. In ancient China, the emperor often appointed his favorite son to succeed him to the throne, regardless of age. When Puyi, the last emperor of China, came to power in 1908, he was less than 3 years old. Now I know in the Bible, you've had like maybe 7 years old. Is that Darius? Josiah. Oh. The Chinese use a lunar calendar based on the phases of the moon. Chinese New Year usually occurs between mid-January and early February. The most important part of the celebration is a parade, which is often led by officials, followed by dancing dragons, firecrackers, acrobatic performances, and lion dancers. According to Chinese tradition, on New Year's Day, it is important that everyone dresses in new clothes. That way they can have a fresh start and evil spirits won't recognize them. I grew up during the Chinese Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 1976. Like the street children in this story, we were deprived of food and clothes along with many other things. For example, Western fairy tales, folk tales, and novels were banned and burned. But that didn't stop my family and me from reading. Good. My brothers and I read every work of literature that came into our hands, and my parents read banned medical journals. Whenever I was lucky enough to get my hands on one of the forbidden books, I had to read it in a hurry, late at night, so I could pass it on to friends who were anxiously awaiting their turn. If caught, we could face public humiliation and even risk having our families sent to a labor camp. You know, in slavery time, African Americans could not, they were banned from reading. We know that. And sometimes there would be very stiff penalties. That's why there were such things as tunnel schools, where slaves built these tunnels underground, and they would hide in the middle of the night. They would have a candle, and they would teach each other how to read. So how is it that we cannot enjoy literacy today and we have freedom? Oh. Despite the danger, the hunger for literature was so intense that we were willing to risk it. Like the boy emperor, I would always search for ways to outsmart the officials. I would hide the banned books between newspapers or wrap them in lotus leaves. My most daring trick was disguising the book with the jacket of a government propaganda book. Due to the lack of books and other entertainment, my friends and I would pass the time by reciting stories from the illegal books we had read. On my 8th Chinese New Year's Eve, a friend lent me a dog-eared translation of The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. I stayed up all night reading it over and over. I traced my fingers over the beautiful illustrations. I laughed out loud at the naked emperor marching through town. When it was my turn to recite the story, I added my own twist to The Emperor's New Clothes and rewarded myself and my friends with new clothes and food for the upcoming New Year. That experience eventually led to this retelling, Ying in China during the Cultural Revolution. What a wonderful reminder that we have freedom to be smart. Let's pass on these traditions. Ying Chang Kambastan grew up in communist China, where she read banned books from the West in secret. It was there that she read this book, The Emperor's New Clothes, the original one. That experience eventually led to this retelling. And David Roberts is illustrator of Twist Scientist and #1 New York bestseller. He lives in London. When not drawing, he likes to make hats. Guys, we have genius within us. We know that there are going to be people like that who are trying to steal from us or make us feel bad. But you make sure that you stay smart, you stay strong, and outwit those enemies. Have a good one.